Okay, here we are, up way early in the morning with Cortes. The one noise that seems to happen around here that gets me to actually close my window, as it's too loud as opposed to the trucks backing up and everything, is guys with leaf blowers. They come through our parking lot, and yes, it's very early in the morning. Spaniards launching attacks here and here. The cav couldn't attack any of these. Well, they could have attacked here, but they couldn't attack here because it's not on the road. So I swung them through and desecrated the temple now. Because I didn't have counters for it, I'm using 2038 counter, I think. And then here I'm going to throw this attack into play. I'm not going to pull these guys out of here because I don't want to put them at risk. I think I'm doing pretty well as it is. If this does not go well, I'm in a lot of trouble. But if it does not go well, it means the Aztec forces pretty much can chase my boats around and do whatever the hell they like, which has not been my impression so far. We'll see which way that goes. I'm not really sure. There's a lot of hits those boats can take, but each one is a lot of damage. Plus, there's the chance of Cortes getting killed here. In fact, to avoid that chance, I don't remember exactly where he was. I'm going to throw him on the ground. He's safe right there for now. And then I can see, but he doesn't want to be there. I don't know where he was, so he stays with the boats, and I take some risk. There's some possibility of him getting killed. The Aztecs are in a lot of trouble. They've pulled back around the temple complex. They don't have enough strength to hit this with any reasonable chance, so I don't want to attack it. It's got odds shifts in its favor. That's all the cav sitting there. That would have been a really nice target, but as it is, I've taken my fortress positions. That's the best I can do. And then these guys are moving forward. Basically, they can take the shots from that. Here's what I'm finding. They lose 3 units, 4 units, or whatever, but they also do some damage. The damage doesn't really count, though. They're taking about as many hit points of units as the boats are, and the boats are unimportant, pretty much, until or unless there's something floating around out here. So that'll add a lot of troop strength to the island, but I don't think it's going to add a lot of defensive force. There's no knights in there. That's the weakest shit there is. So I've got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 knights with the leader, and that's it. No, that's not a knight. I think of 4, and that's all I got. The forces on the island getting further and further reduced, and then these guys taking heavy losses, but they're still taking a gunboat out each time. I'm not quite sure what to do in this situation anymore. Having gotten 1-to-1 odds on that stack in the temple, and with surrounding and a couple of shifts from a guy, I gotta check his death. Had some close calls on Cortes, actually. We did manage to actually kill more units there, more steps than we took in damage, which is kind of cool. And a prisoner check, which didn't work. We still have this temple undesecrated, so we can make those checks. Landing a bunch of Aztecs along the waterway here. Now that presents Cortes with an interesting question. He's got to decide, does he want to bombard or hit those units? Probably both. He's going to split his forces, and personally he'll stay with the bombarding fleet so he's not risking his life. He can also start moving those guys. And the Aztecs are getting driven down further and further. I concentrated all my attack on there. It's really important to concentrate on the single big attack rather than try to split things up. There's very little advantage to splitting up. These guys got hammered for about 3 or 4 losses there, and meanwhile the guys who tried landing, they got bombarded to pieces. And that's really the problem with landing, is even this small force was able to whack almost all of them. I got a couple units there. We get the cav moving forward here because it feels safe now. There aren't really any options I can think of with the Aztecs. The problem is, the only thing that I can do at this time in the game is I can try to withdraw with him. But that doesn't do me any good. That's only 5 loss points. I have to break 8 to even drop this from like the ultimate victory. So, for the Spaniards. So I pretty much have to do a few casualties. And he's going to stay and fight in order to try to inflict them. But I just don't see how they're going to happen. And these are not going to help much now that I don't have any strength anywhere. They're not going to slow something. Basically, their purpose is to slow things down in order to conduct attacks elsewhere, to prevent the Spanish advance from being too powerful. They're not going to do much on their own. They might throw some extra hits in. They might be able to, cause, they call it concentric attack here, but essentially an encirclement, and get the odds shift from that. But they're not really useful on their own. So I'm going for low odds, high payouts. An attack in here, I think I'll be doing the concentric against the cav. Just, I don't have anything else I can attack there. I could try to sucker them in somewhere, but that doesn't, I don't know, the temple is 2 shifts. That's painful. But over here, I'm trying to murder Cortes, basically. It looks like the best chance I have of winning by far, that 1 in 36 chance. But it also might generate some loss points. These are only damaged ships here. It's probably not, but it could hit some of these natives at least. Well, other than the 1 in 36 chance here, there was very little else that happened from that. I lost a couple of Aztec canoemen trying to sail around. Over here things went better. It was 1 loss on each side. I took the loss on this, which looks pretty hopeless anyhow, and the cav is getting reduced. They feel in this kind of desperate situation, but they're really not. From the board position, you can tell they're not, but you can kind of imagine them stuck on the temple with troops in a fortress not far away, but the Aztecs coming in and surrounding them basically, and really causing hell for them, and then they're going to be freed in the nick of time, and it's going to be an exciting story that goes in Bernardo's tales or whatever. This is a lot less exciting than the historical, though. And the reason is that I screwed up pretty royally with the Aztecs. That's becoming clear to me. I begin to see how the game probably should have developed, with large hordes of troops on the island itself trying to defend it and trying to slow down the Spaniards. It's time for me to go to work. The Spaniards bring their force to bear, using the cav to drive Cuauhtémoc, or whatever his name is, out to here. This was actually, they had more force on him and could have gotten an 8-1, but with the odds shifts, etc., it was worth chasing him. They destroyed his stacks. He had more of a chance of being killed in that kind of in a battle where his entire force is destroyed. I do have to advance, however, and that's something I forgot to do. And let's see. This also was destroyed or captured and has an advance there. We're down to just 1 stack here. That's going to be over pretty soon, and there's no reason or no way to get him off the board easily. Cortes left his navy to avoid losing the game on that, whereas the naval forces flicked off about 4 more units here. We've got the cav here. Was able to make the dash for safety. Remember, it can't get hurt in the fortress. And then these guys kind of pushed back, withdrawing. They're not really needed. This game is pretty much over. It's just a matter of mopping up at this point. There's nothing that these guys can do. Had they been able to kill Cortes, hey, that would have been great. But Other than that, I don't see a way. Maybe I can try to get him off map, just as a matter of saving him. Now the game itself ends if there are no Aztec units on Tenochtitlan, which means I can't evacuate everyone. I've got to leave some kind of defensive force back there. Meanwhile, I'm looking at trying to fight a naval battle because I am doing some damage, but not enough to be worthwhile. And here's the thing, with these guys there, they're kind of preventing it as well. So as far as I see, I could concede at this point, but well, I've got a few little breaks left, so I don't see any real point to that. And the Aztecs managed to play a trap or trick on this unit, get it to chase them here. Just a 1 in 6 chance of that succeeding. We've landed some forces here. I don't have a trap there, but at least I have 2-to-1 attack. Let's do that. I didn't think to do that. No shift against. It's probably the best I can do. 7 is my die roll. I take 1, they take 2 steps. Well, we're both destroyed. I just don't see any way around this, though. And that was an attack not against Spaniards, so I can't sacrifice them. Yeah, it's looking pretty damn ugly at this point. Quick moves by the Spaniards. The Cav out here to grab this fortress, hold it, and down here desecrate another temple. Only Cav is able to do that until Cortes comes up. This Cav can't really do much towards these guys, but he's holding the fortress as the infantry's coming up. Meanwhile, the rest of the forces are pushing down. The Navy slid up here, shot up some more canoes, and did a bombardment on one unit. I kind of moved everybody in there instead of bombarding these 2 units. Oh well. Doesn't look like it makes much difference, to tell you the truth. I don't think I have enough forces to even get on the attack chart, but I am allowed to still attack. It looks like odds lower than 1-to-4 treated as 1-to-4. So I'm going to try some more assassination attempts on Cortes since they left me the unit. And that did not work. I've moved him here with an attempt to launch another trap so I could run even further away. Basically enhancing my movement by 3 hexes was kind of the idea. I'd have had to attack in that case, but that's okay. I don't want to make the attack otherwise, though. I want to stay on the coastal areas. Yeah, it's dangerous because I could get bombarded, but mainly because I want to launch out and take 1 shot. I get a couple of column shifts in my favor. Oh, but that's not going to be enough to do me much good at all. And it's pretty much winding down to the end. The end comes closer and closer, but the Spaniard's not even allowed to attack because the bombardment took out all his units. We also are down to only 1 of those canoeists left, and then this guy back here. You know, it's clearly a time well past the time when the Aztec player would have just said, you know, I've lost massively, but I like playing things out to the end for whatever strange reason. I caught one thing that I'm doing very wrong here. I forgot I read it in the rules when I went over them, but the Spanish and their allies pay 2 per causeway hex. It would have slowed things down, given a little bit more mobility to the Aztecs. But slowing things down isn't what mattered. Not much. Anyway, there you have it. It's also the question of, hey, if I control this causeway, as I kind of have, does it really make sense that I'd be paying that extra cost? So, at least in some cases, I'm not so sure that increased cost makes any sense. Well, now our brave Aztec leader is stuck here without any troops and any hope of finding him. Now, if he had been put in that position in a combat result as opposed to bombardment, he would, if he survived, and there's a good chance he might not, he would have teleported over here. But because of the way the rules are structured, he's not, which means on the next Spanish turn, he will be captured automatically. Whatever. Over here, this is pretty hopeless as well. There's really nothing I can do to save that piece. So I'm going to call it here. I don't see any reason to fight out that last round, which really comes down to I don't want to attack it until I've captured him anyhow. But once I destroy this, this is clear. And I have taken, well, actually I have to take them both out to win. I'd have taken the entire island. As a wrap-up kind of point, you know, obviously this playthrough hasn't been of very much use to anyone. It might give you some ideas about it, but yes, I screwed up the one roll that I just mentioned, and that has some small effect. But remember, there's no time limit on any of this, so I could have just advanced more slowly. Now, that would have given the Aztecs more time to react. And for the most part, most of my units were stuck out at sea, and I couldn't ever land them. And that's the real flaw that comes about of this playthrough, which is that even though there was a warning in the rules, don't try to defend anything but the interior of the island, basically. You know, for me, the story of the attack on Mexico City, or on Tenochtitlan or whatever, involves the causeways and Cortes having difficulty getting across them. Now, that could have been the causeways inside the city as well. So it could just be that everything out here doesn't have to be defended. But my own reading of the story made me think I should defend a little further out. I should be conducting some of these odder things. That I should also, you know, I wasn't risking much, I thought, but that little raids with my canoeists and stuff would serve some purpose. And I just didn't think hard enough or trust the advice completely enough to be willing to say, yeah, there's nothing else. And that's actually, to me, one of the kind of negative points about the game, which I'll get to more detail maybe in the review. In some sense, there shouldn't be a review, but because I just don't know enough about it. But it's that it focuses more on this one. There's a lot of rules in the game having to do with the naval action, etc., that really only kind of suffice to prevent the game from going in the direction that it did. If you play it once and screw up like this, you'll probably never do that again. Some of me says, well, you should play another scenario of it, and not that they're separate scenarios, but another session of it, and, you know, see more about it. But quite honestly, I'm not that terribly interested in what's left afterwards. It becomes this kind of geometric game where you're trying to take advantage of the little, you know, the traps that the Aztecs can perform, and the knights charging where you can do that. And that's all. A lot of the game seems to kind of be stripped away at that point. It becomes little individual puzzles. Can the Aztecs get enough? Can they manage to capture and start getting their odds up, and then force a withdrawal by the Spaniards? A lot of what looked interesting, all this naval action and everything, well, you really don't want to be playing around too much with that. There might be some opportunities, but it strikes me that a few gunboats placed strategically around the island can pretty much prevent the Aztecs from doing anything too impressive in that manner. All right, let's send